From farm to your store in days, not weeks. That's 80 Acres Farms. Did you know that most salad travels over 2,000 miles to reach your plate? But not 80 Acres Farms. Their crisp salad greens and herbs are food less traveled. This means it stays fresher for longer in your fridge. My salad lasts all week long. No more food waste. Oh, and did I mention there's no need to wash this produce because 80 Acres Farms uses zero pesticides. Visit 80acresfarms.com to learn more and find their salads and herbs at your local Kroger.
Hey, welcome back. It's Thanksgiving 2023. We're coming up on that. And I thought that this was a great time of year to release this episode because it deals with family. So I spoke with filmmaker Jon Baime, who came out with this great movie called Filling in the Blanks. It's just an amazing epic tale. I don't want to really give away too much. There's an awesome trailer out there. If you want to view it, I suggest you go out there. John's name is spelled Jon, like Jon Stewart. Last name is spelled Baime. For those who are just listening, I might put up a font here. But anyway, we had a great talk. Jon is an Atlanta-based filmmaker, does a lot of work here in the Decatur, Georgia, and Atlanta area. And we just have a great time. So I really, really do hope you enjoy this episode. I know I did. I had a great time speaking with him. He's a really great, articulate guy. He has a tinge of Woody Allen in him. We kind of touch on that a little bit, but no, in the good way. In the good way, we stress that, and Jon does as well in this discussion. And I just really had a fun time. He did such an amazing job. It's a beautiful looking movie, available on video on demand, and probably by the time this is released, this might be in a lot of other places. It deserves to be in a lot of other places. The way that it is put together, it's incredibly professional. We touch all that, and I really do get into it. Really, this is a really fun one. Thanks for joining me today. It's just a beautiful, lovely, what's becoming a fall day here in the good old southeastern United States. You are in Decatur, Georgia today?
I'm in Decatur, Georgia today. Yes.
Good for you. Good for
Lovely.
you. And how long have you been in Decatur now?
I have lived here in Decatur for 2005, quick math, 18 and a half years.
Yeah. What brought you to the Atlanta metro? As many of us have come down here into the golden sun with our cathode ray tube dreams here in the television and film business. What was your calling here?
It was the cathode ray tube dream. I was just graduated Ithaca College in the summer of 1986, or the spring, and I needed a job, and I found one at what was once known as Headline News back in the day. And
the old news wheel, that's for sure. We'll try not to go too inside baseball. A little disclaimer: we have both worked in the operation known as Turner Broadcasting Systems way back when, and so that's just a little bit of a disclaimer. So that's how we got to know each other many moons ago. But you were down in Headline News. I had been working with Cable News Network, otherwise known as CNN, for a long time. Right. So, yeah, I mean, that's where we have all built our storytelling skills, and we're ever so grateful for it. And for this man named Ted Turner.
Yeah. I mean, eventually I'd worked my way up to CNN, and the experiences I had there really, really helped craft my storytelling abilities. And that's what got me to where I am at the moment.
Yes, and where you are at the moment is with this wonderful new film called Filling in the Blanks. How did this come about? How many years in the making was this?
I would say it started as sort of a COVID thing in 2020. To go back a little bit, I discovered I'm one of those people. I made a discovery after taking a DNA test. Oops. And I had no idea that I woke up one morning thinking I was one person and went to bed at night not knowing who the heck I was or where I came from. I got the results of a DNA test that I took just to find out, do I have anything in me that might be interesting, and maybe some health stuff too, just for fun. But what I found out was that the guy that raised me wasn't my dad.
Yeah, how does that test come back though? Because I've always been curious about it. Like with my family, it's like, oh, 97% you're Ashkenazi Jew. And that's, there's nothing more to it than that. But from my family, they don't tell you very much. My grandparents came off the boats and I just knew very, very little. They never wanted to talk about things. So I'm sure, how did you get that information and then figure that out? How did the test tell you that?
Well, it's interesting. The test told me that because there's this little button that says find your DNA relatives. And I thought, oh, what the heck? Maybe I'll from cousin Keith or cousin Nancy. And instead, 5 half siblings who I knew nothing about, their names popped up. All of a sudden I had 2 half brothers and 3 half sisters. And I thought, oh my God, which one of my parents was fooling around when?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like, oh my, so that feeling had to be like, oh my gosh, how did you broach that with your parents at that point?
Well, that's where it gets kind of tricky. At that point, my mom was deep into dementia and was not very there. Let's put it that way. My dad, or the dad that raised me, who I found out was not my dad, he was 92 at the time. And so what I did was I reached out to my older brother, Eric, and I said, you need to take this test now. And I said, when you find out, you need to tell Dad, hey, I took the test and something's up. Why is John my half brother? And he's like, no, we're not going to do that. He's too old. Let's find out what's going on. And eventually I got an email from one of the half siblings on 23andMe who said, hi, I see we're related. We're half siblings, but she just was very, very nonchalant. I see we're related. If you'd like to know more about how we're related, let me know. I respect your privacy. Enjoy your journey. And I was like, what is this journey? What's going on here? What does she know? So I said, yes, tell me everything. I mean, I wasn't going to sleep that night. The night I got the results, like 2 Xanax. I took 2 Xanax. I'm supposed to only take it when I fly. And I did not sleep.
That's
so. The next day, she sends me a note back saying, hey, I know who your biological father is. And I'm thinking, my dad? And then the next line was, he was a sperm donor at Mount Sinai Hospital, where I happened to be born. And he donated for couples who could not have children. And then it all clicked. And to go back a little bit, the reason I took the test was because I was at dinner with my dad one night for his birthday. There were some friends there, and when they were talking about DNA testing, and I said I wanted to take a DNA test, and he looked at me in front of everybody and started saying, "You can't take that test until after I'm dead. I don't want you to take the test till after I'm dead." And everybody at the table looked at him like he was nutty, including myself, except my mother, who was kind of deep into dementia, just kind of staring, but. It was a moment, and it was one of those things you never forget. So, of course, when he told me not to take the test, what do you think I did the next day, Bob?
Oh, I would too. I think most of us would do that. I would be just like, I can't wait. Yeah, and then there has to be a reason.
Right. So, and I knew his mother was adopted. So I always assumed that my paternal grandmother, maybe she was Irish, maybe she was Italian, maybe there was some. So that's the reason I took it. And what I found out was not only was he not my biological father, but the woman who I thought was my paternal grandmother, who might have Irish or Italian or something in her, wasn't really biologically related to me. So it didn't matter.
Wow. Well, growing up, and we're around the same age, Gen Xers, and I grew up in the Cleveland, Ohio area, and in the suburbs there. The east side was pretty Jewish. And
Shaker Heights?
Near Shaker Heights. I grew up in South Euclid, Ohio, which is a little north of there. So the bigger thing, we were always told, certain kids would be adopted, maybe through the Jewish Federation or something, just to keep the bloodlines going or whatever, but to stay within the Judaism. But now I kind of wonder if they had a program. I was born at a Mount Sinai hospital as well, as you were. So it's I kind of wonder if they had programs across the country. And I know you kind of explore and you talked to an expert who was speaking to that.
Yeah, they did. It took me 4 days to find my biological father, who had already been in touch with some of these donor siblings that I had met. And he explained to me how the program worked because he was very involved in it. Like any specimen kind of thing, if you're a good specimen, they keep calling you back. So if you end up getting women pregnant because of your sample, they're going to keep calling you back. Obviously, if you have a high success rate. So he explained to me how it worked. And there was a thing where a lot of couples who were Jewish would in fact come and say they wanted Jewish children. And that's why they would go there, because they knew a lot of the med students were Jewish.
Yeah, med students were doing this, and you
Yeah.
finally get to meet him in the film. I don't want to do all these spoiler alerts because there's just so much riveting stuff in there. I highly recommend the film. It's just a lot of twists and turns in there as well, and you have your brothers in it. It's very, very touching and wonderful storytelling as well. It took a village to get this film together. It wasn't just like you pointed your own camera and made it happen. Great cinematography, and of course your editor is fantastic. How did you start this relationship? Her name's Kimberly O'Neill, I believe.
Kimberly O'Neill is the editor. She is wonderful, and there was I met her years ago, probably about 20 years ago, when I got a job after CNN working on a travel show called Two Lane Traveler, and she was the editor. So I knew her from then, and then we had crossed paths several times in the Atlanta production freelance world over the last 2 decades. And I was somewhere with her, and I said, you'd be a really good editor to work on this particular project, this movie I want to make. I'm a Jewish kid raised in the suburbs. I was born in South Orange in 1970s New Jersey. There really wasn't much more of a Jewish town. It was like the 5 towns of Long Island. You had or the Shaker Heights of Cleveland. You had South Orange, because all the Jews from Newark that grew up in Newark moved to the suburbs, really one town over. So I had that growing up. Kim moved all over the place. She wasn't Jewish at all. I don't know what religion. I don't think she had a religion. I lived in one house. I had one culture, and they were all over the place. She came from a completely different background. And I thought that would be really good to have an editor who would literally see my life with fresh eyes. I'm sure, you know the stereotypes of Jews, this and that, right. But, she could really see this. And she would learn things. And along the way, it really did come in helpful. She would see things and point things out in the footage I had and said, you should include this. This is really unique. You should use this. You should use that. And these things were really helpful, because for me, it seems pretty straightforward because it's just my boring old life. But for her, it was something that she felt was very different. And I think she would have more of an eye for what most people in American culture would relate to or would find unique than I might, just because I was so used to it. So for what was normal for me might have been kind of unique to her and majority of other people. So that's why I picked her.
From farm to your store in days, not weeks. That's 80 Acres Farms. Did you know that most salad travels over 2,000 miles to reach your plate? But not 80 Acres Farms. Their crisp salad greens and herbs are food less traveled. This means it stays fresher for longer in your fridge. My salad lasts all week long. No more food waste. Oh, and did I mention there's no need to wash this produce because 80 Acres Farms uses 0 pesticides. Visit 80acresfarms.com to learn more and find their salads and herbs at your local Kroger.
We all know a guy who only occasionally shaves for big occasions, and it's because that occasional shave really hurts. It's the time of year for big occasions, and yet there he is, suffering with that cheap drugstore razor. Let's help him out. Henson Shaving's line of razors, built with aerospace precision, deliver a smooth shave your dad, brother, and even son can enjoy, eventually. With replacement blades just 10 cents each, you'll buy it once, and they'll use it for life. How's that for the perfect gift? Celebrate with 100 free blades on your first purchase, and no subscription headaches. HensonShaving.com/holiday.
Fantastic.
And she's a great editor too, by the way. She's brilliantly talented.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. She definitely has a future, and I'm sure she has a great past as well. So you chose well. It tells the story very well. What also enhances it is your narration. You kind of remind me, it kind of has this, you're not totally like Woody Allen, but it has that vibe. Was he an influence growing up?
Okay, well, let's do the full disclosure here. We all know Woody Allen has a lot of allegations against him. I don't know him personally, so I can't speak to yes or no he did or didn't. But I don't have any of those allegations about me. So let's see.
It's an influence that we grew up with, and
but it was an influence. Stuff. And I will tell you that your answer is very much yes. Sometimes before I would go into writing a project, whether it was this project or a project for a client, I would watch Hannah and Her Sisters, which is a movie he made in 1986. And I would watch that and study that and remember how he did story structure and how he was telling a story arc, character development. And I would try and let that soak in, and then whatever would come out of me after I process it. So there is an influence there. It's just in the storytelling aspect, not in the personal life aspect.
No, not at all.
Feel free to do a background search on me. I'm good.
Nothing will ever come out.
Nothing. Few traffic tickets.
But it's so depressing now, kind of going off track and talking about Woody. It's so depressing because it's like I always looked forward to a new Woody Allen movie coming to the theater. I was like, Zelig blew me away when you're talking about like editing and doing all of that and storytelling.
Oh yeah, that was, and another one with great storytelling, and this is I think in the 80s is when he really peaked, was Broadway Danny Rose.
I love it.
I mean, just the sitting down at the delicatessen and telling the story about this crazy neurotic failure manager is great. So he's a brilliant storyteller, and he resonates with me. One of the scenes in Hannah and Her Sisters, which I first saw with my mom, I remember going and seeing it in 1986. And one of the scenes is they do a flashback where Woody finds out that he can't have kids. His character, he can't have kids. And he goes to his best friend and says, I need some sperm. And I remember my mom cracking up at that scene. It was so funny. And now I reflect on it differently because it probably resonated with her in a way. I didn't know back then. It was almost 40 years ago at this point since that movie came out. But I remember now seeing that movie and always remember her just thinking that was the funniest thing. It was funny. It was funny, but I'm like, she really got a kick out of that scene.
Yeah, now that all comes back and you see these little clues. It's like, I remember this when I was a kid. And oh yeah, that makes total sense. And it's very poignant in your movie where you talk with these women who they wanted to have kids, and this was their only way of trying to figure it out. Like, not like the technology we have today.
No,
to get women pregnant. But back then, that's all they knew from.
No, what we have is what I did in the movie was, this isn't really giving away spoilers, but I wanted to try and figure out what my parents went through. What was their journey like? And the only way I could do that was by finding surviving parents of my donor siblings. And there were 3 moms alive. All the dads had since passed, except at the time when I met the donor siblings, mine was still alive. He had no idea I'll get to that in a minute. But I wanted to see what they went through. And the theme was all the same. The theme was they were kids back then. I mean, they all got married young in their early and mid 20s, which for today's society culture, that's a little young. Most people get married closer to 30. Not everybody, I realize that. But back then, you were done with high school. You did a little finishing school and boom, you started having kids. So they were young. It was very secretive. It was a shame. I married a man who can't, oh my God. So they didn't really talk about it, and they'd go to the doctor. And the doctor would tell them not to tell anybody about this. And part of it was there were bills in many state legislatures that wanted to make artificial insemination illegal. So it shows you that this was a little bit of a touchy subject back then. But all the women, they just wanted babies. They wanted babies so bad. And then it clicked on me. At first, I was really angry at my parents. Why didn't you tell me about this? But I had to realize that this wasn't just about me, because when they made the decisions to do artificial insemination, it was only about them, because I didn't exist yet. My older brothers didn't exist yet.
Wow. Just yeah, I mean, just so stunning, and the way you go through it in the movie is just really amazing. And I love how you do this annual gathering with those
Mm.
siblings in Flemington, New Jersey. Do you always go there?
We don't always go there, but we did 2 years in a row, and we did one this past August, and it's great. We get along. We're friends. That's what they're like. I always say it's like book club without the books. We get along fine. There are some donor siblings in our group that we've met or that we've reached out to who are just not interested. They're either their mom or dad is still alive and they feel guilty. I was meeting these people while my parents were still alive. Kind of did it behind their back. But we decided, my brothers and I decided, what's the point of bringing this up to a 92-year-old man,
Right,
my dad.
right.
My mom, again, it doesn't matter because she was mentally, she was gone. But he was there, too there sometimes. And we just decided we better let it go. Obviously, he didn't want me to take the test for a reason. It was something he could not face. And at 92 years, at that point, I didn't know it, but he only had 2.5 years left to live. And what do I want to bring this up at the end? His wife is gone after 60 years. I mean, it's just a body, basically. And he's suffering with that. What do we need to pound this on for? It just didn't make sense to us to approach him. Had it been 10 years earlier and my mom had still been cognizant of what was going on in her world, maybe we would have approached it differently. But at this point, it just didn't make sense to bring it out to my dad.
Yeah, it's probably for the best at the end of the day. So, I mean, you all have a clear conscience, and that's really what is important. Overall, though, you had a happy childhood growing up. I mean, could you have imagined it any different?
I did have a happy childhood. In fact, I grew up quite, be transparent here. I grew up in a pretty privileged environment. I was very fortunate. I never wanted for anything. So we were very lucky on that front. My parents were great providers. And that's one of the first things I say in the movie. Mm-hmm. Listen, there are terrible things parents can do to children that you don't even want to think about. And nothing like that happened in my home. There was a little bit of, I think my dad, and there seems to be a consistency amongst donor conceived children who are from my generation who find out by surprise or find out later in life. There is a little bit of distance that we've always had with our dad that we could not put our finger on. It's not a magic bullet for everybody. Some of these donor conceived people love their dads and worship the ground they walked on, as they should. But in a lot of cases, there is this feeling that there is a distance, there is a wall. And I talk about that in the movie, that there is a wall between us and our dad that we could not figure out. And the relationship was he would blame us for the wall. We were not good enough. Jewish parents are always like, why aren't you going to be a doctor? You hear that kind of thing. But this was more than that. This was more than your typical Jewish guilt. It doesn't mean they didn't love us. I know my mom was crazy about all three of us. She was thrilled to have babies. And I think my dad loved us too, very much. But I think just that underlying secret, having to keep that hidden about his identity and our identity, it just puts something in the way that, unfortunately, I really feel like honesty might have made a difference at some point in our lives. But, I can Monday morning quarterback this,
Yeah.
For the rest of my life, it's not going to get me anywhere. What it is.
It is. And they've done very well. You've turned out fantastic, put out a great movie here. You have a lot of archival material in there. How tough was that, getting all that stuff, going through it? Did you get a lot of memories coming back and then having to transfer all that stuff? And it looks great in the movie. You preserved all that 8mm stuff very well and all the old videotapes. You have a lot of stuff documented there.
Yeah, Bob, it was really interesting. I would say I found this out about my dad in 2019 in the winter. In the summer of 2019, just before COVID, we all went up to my parents' place in New Jersey. They had moved to Florida, but they still had a place in Jersey, and all the pictures were there. And at this point, I knew what I knew. And I knew I was going to do something with this. And while everybody was cleaning out and taking silver and tablecloths and little knickknacks and whatnot, I was down in the storage room making sure I had every single photo, every single video, every single film, because I knew exactly what I was doing. I mean, I said to my dad, I'm like, I'm taking all the films. He's like, well, why do you want that? Just throw it out. I'm like, oh, no. But I wouldn't tell him why. I just, no, it's nostalgia, but.
Never, no. So I grew up making Super 8mm films. I have on my YouTube channel and all that. So it's just, it's gold to me. And anybody's films and videos, pictures, all that stuff, that all needs to be in vaults. We need to prove we were all here once we get taken over one day or whatever. But yeah, I think that's really important. It's just beautiful how it's sprinkled throughout the whole movie.
Yeah, and since I was born, my mom would say, "Oh, here's our honeymoon," and she'd show me movies of the honeymoon that they took in 1954, and I still have that, and it's actually in pretty good shape. I mean, I digitized it to the highest resolution I could just for the movie. But no, I went through a scavenger hunt and got everything I could get out of that house as far as films and videos and photo albums. And my brothers had some things, and I would go to their houses and scan stuff too. But I had most of everything, and it's still sitting in my garage, and I don't know what to do with it because it's all digitized now.
Always keep the originals. I always say this because I save all my VHS, all my old Super 8s. Always keep the originals because there could be better technology down the road where you might want to go back to those originals. And I'm probably going to do that next year with a lot of my Super 8s because there are better machines now that could really get it. And you could run the films and really get a good digitization of it. So there's always good stuff down the road where you Get like a fireproof vault or something. I mean, it's really important to save all that stuff, all your originals.
From farm to your store in days, not weeks. That's 80 Acres Farms. Did you know that most salad travels over 2,000 miles to reach your plate? But not 80 Acres Farms. Their crisp salad greens and herbs are food less traveled. This means it stays fresher for longer in your fridge. My salad lasts all week long. No more food waste. Oh, and did I mention there's no need to wash this produce because 80 Acres Farms uses zero pesticides. Visit 80acresfarms.com to learn more and find their salads and herbs at your local Kroger.
We all know a guy who only occasionally shaves for big occasions, and it's because that occasional shave really hurts. It's the time of year for big occasions, and yet there he is, suffering with that cheap drugstore razor. Let's help him out. Henson Shaving's line of razors, built with aerospace precision, deliver a smooth shave your dad, brother, and even son can enjoy, eventually. With replacement blades just 10 cents each, you'll buy it once, and they'll use it for life. How's that for the perfect gift? Celebrate with 100 free blades on your first purchase, and no subscription headaches. HensonShaving.com/holiday.
Well, like I said, I'm very fortunate I had it. And we do have a celebrity in the movie too, who I found in archival footage from which actually, even though that particular celebrity had nothing to do with this at all, he just happened to sort of graze on the side of the story without knowing it. And I found footage of my mother with that person too. When she was on TV, and I'll just leave it at that.
Yes. It goes back. Was it in the 50s?
It was amazing. August 1st, 1958. It was August 1958. Yeah.
That's awesome. No, I love that part of the story. I don't want to give that away. It's in this great movie. You can get it. Now, where can you get the filling in the blanks? It's on VOD, which means you can go on YouTube and rent it or buy it.
You can go on Apple TV and rent it and buy it. Amazon rent it and buy it. YouTube rent it and buy it. Vudu rent it and buy it. I think Microsoft has some kind of gaming platform, rent it and buy it there. And Vimeo also, you can rent it and buy it there. So it's if you have Dish or Direct and you have on-demand services with them, you can get it there. And if you have most cable TV carriers in the United States, it's on their on-demand library as well.
Yeah, you could just it's amazing how you can go ahead and do that these days and be your own distributor in that.
Well, actually, I'm not. Actually, my distribution company is from Cleveland.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's called Gravitas Ventures. I was very fortunate to find them actually. They've been great. So yeah, that's how I was able I don't think most people can put their stuff on Amazon or Apple TV.
That's true. I thought you were maybe going straight to them, and somehow they were giving you whatever contract or whatever you're arranging. But that's a lot of work on its own, and you're the creator, so you got to be the storyteller.
Yeah, I will. It is a lot of work on its own, and I was so thankful. I'm like, oh, thank God. I couldn't do it anymore. It was just like when I found the distributor and they found me, and we kind of agreed to work together. I was actually very relieved. You were asking about before. You were asking about film festivals. I'm going to be in the Boca Raton Jewish Film Festival coming up this winter. One of the pieces, and I'm also going to be exhibiting it in Baltimore. It's not part of the Baltimore Jewish Film Festival, but it's part of their film series, and I know that's going to happen in December as well. But usually you do the film festival thing first, and then you go ahead and get your distributor. I think I was just so excited that I had a distributor that I was like, oh. I didn't realize, but for marketing and PR purposes, you want to get the film credibility, and getting those laurels is important. And I should have maybe, if I made a mistake, that was probably the one mistake. Is I probably should have done the film festivals first, and then found a distributor, or the distributor would find me. But whatever, it is what it is.
So this has been a full-time job for you for like the last 3+ years now? Is that where most of your
Not
energy
necessarily. It became a full-time job in 2021. I started filming. I think it was October 21st, 2021, and the last thing I filmed, I shot on October 22nd, 2022. So there was a year where that was my only thing. It was, and dancing around COVID. I mean, I got COVID. My subjects got COVID. Things were, I could have finished this thing 4-6 months earlier, but everybody was getting COVID. Nobody wanted to meet. It was, I just want to shoot myself. So when it was finally done,
that's where the Xanax comes in.
That's where the Xanax and of course Paxlovid, if you get the COVID. It was very frustrating trying to do this through COVID, but I did get it done. I finished the film. I guess we finished our last edits probably early April, and I would say a couple of weeks later I had a distribution deal. I'm like, okay,
good, awesome. Yeah, hey, let's put it out there. Maybe Max can take this one day. Let's pray. It would be nice to have it on that service. Just a little cheap plug for the for the dayside employer of mine. I would just put it out there. Please view this film and strike a deal and get this thing on Max, because it's just it's fantastic. Where did you get the music as far as getting that in there?
There's a Universal Production Music Library, and I knew Kim when she edited, she had a magic way with music. Now, I did send it into an audio post if you want to go into the technicalities. And there was a gentleman named Jared Hamilton who did who turned it into surround sound. And so he was great. And he took Kim's work and brought it a level higher. And at the first screening, I had just a very private screening here in Decatur. I noticed how much work he had done in it, and he did such a great job. So I was really, really, really lucky with that. And I had some very talented people. Most of the people I worked with were people from the Georgia, Atlanta area. There's a huge talent pool here. One exception was my best friend from college. His name is Tom Chartrand. He's a videographer. He lives in Massachusetts. And I said, you got to be the dude to do this with me, because it's too freaky. And I'm really glad I had him work on it too. But there's a gentleman named Ed Coughlin, who is a great friend of mine here, very tight friend. We worked together on many projects. He actually worked at Headline News for a year. That's how I met him back in '87. I gave him an associate producer credit on this because he was like my consigliere, he would just give me advice. And of course, Kim O'Neill, she's just such a great editor. So I was really, really lucky. It was a perfect storm of great talent that was around me that I was able to tap into, and I'm very fortunate for that.
So you've been getting a lot of feedback. I'm sure you got a lot that night that you premiered it in Decatur. What are people saying? Did you think they kind of looked at you differently after that, or just like,
They
or just the same?
same crazy look, like, what's wrong with you? He's still crazy. Still don't know what. No, honestly, for personal friends and family, the feedback has been great. Interestingly enough, the relatives on my dad's side of the family, the dad that raised me, who isn't my biological father, they loved my dad, and he was very close to them. They lost their dad when they were young, so he became sort of like a second dad to them. They were very supportive. I'll be honest, I was a little worried they were going to think I was too hard on their Uncle Richard, but they were very supportive. Everybody on my mom's side, the cousins I spoke with, very supportive. And of course, the friends here and my local family here in Decatur and the metro Atlanta area, very, very supportive. It was really nice. So from personally, obviously, I'm getting a lot of support. The reviews from the outside, I'll be very blunt. They've been good. Listen, the first one I got was not good. Some guy gave me a splat on Rotten Tomatoes.
What?
Yeah, I got a splat.
It's gonna happen. I mean, you're gonna, like they always say, the haters are always gonna hate or whatever. So I mean, you're not gonna please 100%.
But the good thing is there were there were 3 or 4 others that have been overwhelmingly positive. So look, you're not gonna get all the people all the time, and that's fine. This is a story that people I think people can relate to, but maybe not everybody. I tried to make it as relatable as possible. I'm happy with what I did, and honestly, the way I measure success isn't really by sales or by views. I measure success by the emails or the letters or messages I get on LinkedIn or Facebook that say, "Hey, I went through the same thing and I watched your film and it really helped me." There's a gentleman who lives one town over. I don't know who he is, but he watched the movie. I'm actually going to meet with him in a couple of days just for coffee, because he just found out he was donor conceived. And he's like, I'm just getting used to having 11 siblings, So,
Wow.
so I'm gonna have coffee with him. And anybody who writes me, whether it's on social media, whatever, I always make sure, I give them some kind of a response, even if it's just a heart tap back, or a thumbs up if it's a guy. That's the best part, is knowing that people are seeing it and it resonates with those people who've had very similar experiences. Even when I first made the film, we found a new donor sibling. I found a new sister. I was writing back and forth there, and she's like, well, this is just like a movie. And I said to her, well, speaking of, she said she wanted to see it. And she said she watched it, I think 4 or 5 times. And she said it just made it so easy for her. It helped her process this whole thing, that her dad wasn't her dad. And, made me think, God, I wish I had a movie to watch when I found out.
Yeah, really. And do you still keep in touch with Hash? He's the dad of all these people.
So I did meet my donor dad, which was a great experience. Of course, I keep in touch with him. He was incredibly supportive. Everybody I asked, from the sociologist who I interviewed to give it a little credibility that this is a thing, to the donor siblings, to my brothers, to the donor dad, all were willing to do it. I mean, they couldn't have been more accommodating. And this is in the middle of COVID, and they still were willing to work it out when they could do it. And I was so grateful for all of them. And I'm really, really fortunate.
Yeah, through COVID, we really learned how to do, especially like this program here. It's like doing everything remote. It's who knew? And we learned so fast. And then even my day job too. It's like, I never would have imagined that. Can you imagine, like you're in the 80s going through school? I mean, I would tell you, almost 40 years later, you're going to be doing all of this stuff remotely. It's just, it's fascinating.
It's crazy. It's amazing because I make this movie and I just bring a hard drive with me. There's no film. It's all done digitally. And it's terrific that I can, get rough cuts back and forth from my editor. Kim lives about 30 miles away from here, up in, not Ackworth. I forgot where exactly, but it'll
somewhere by 75, which is northwest Georgia.
and it's going to kill me. Woodstock. So she lives in Woodstock, Georgia. So, without traffic, it's 40 minutes. And, she could just send me rough cuts online. I just look at it and go, it's great. I mean, that's who would have thought?
It solves so many issues. Gosh, I remember even just cutting film. That's giving away the old age there, but doing the old hot splicer and then finally getting into videotape 3/4 inch and then finally beta SP and then beyond everything. And then things going non-linear. It's just, it's incredible how much the technology has changed over all these years.
I don't think if the technology was like it was 30 years ago, I probably would have never been able to do it because it's a lot cheaper per shooting minute than it was in, say, 1983 than it is in 2023. It would have been a fortune. And then film and chemical, I don't even know how that worked back then.
Yeah. I'm always thinking about that. It's like, it was just so clunky, so expensive. I mean, there are purists out there, but we have beautiful, wonderful cameras now. And it shows in your movie. You have great camera people on this. They shot it really well.
Yeah, I was, again, very fortunate. That's my buddy Tom Chartrand, but he wasn't the only one there. Sometimes Tom wasn't available. I think Tom had COVID at one point. I had to get a gentleman named Scott Lutens, who lives here in Atlanta, also to shoot for me, and he did a great job. And there's another guy named Dwayne Codrington who did a little bit of work for me also. So I had a number of different shooters, but Tom probably shot 70% of the stuff that wasn't archive footage. And thank you, though. It's quite an experience putting a movie together.
I always appreciate that when I'm viewing something like that. I know what goes into it, and you did have a nice cast and crew there. And how did it feel like having you actually in it? Were you like a little? It doesn't seem like you were hesitant about it. Are you a natural on-camera person?
Well, it's not for me to say, but I kind of felt if this is my story, I had to be the voice. Period.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to hire Morgan Freeman to narrate it. I mean, it's first of all, not.
Next one, the next film.
And secondly, it's my story. It's got to be my voice telling this story. And that was the way I decided to do it. And that's how I did it. Like, I worked behind the scenes my whole career. And, I was always telling other people's stories. And then all of a sudden, one day I'm like, well, gee, I've got a story to tell. And I've seen how it's done. So I just sort of tapped into that knowledge base a little bit and tried to apply it to what I thought worked. And I guess it worked okay. Nobody's called me up and said they want their 93 minutes back. So when they watch the movie.
Coming up with the title, did you have to check to see if anybody else had that title? Do you have to go through a process like that?
There is a process. I did have a lawyer make sure we had to do a check, a copyright check. And there has to be an argument made by a lawyer to say, okay, this is okay. You can do this. It's not a conflict of interest in anybody else's body of work. As far as where I came up with the title, I was a plane ride after a fish show from Phoenix coming back to Atlanta. And I was writing an email to the woman who was the sociologist in the movie. And I just said to her, I'm writing an email on the plane. And I just said, I'm still trying to fill in all the blanks. And I stopped and I went, oh, that's it. And the people around me looked at me like I was crazy. I was now before some TSA plainclothes air marshal. So at that point, I knew filling in the blanks is a great title. I liked it. That seems to resonate well with people when they see the movie. You get the double entendre pretty quick.
Yeah. Absolutely. So what's next? What are you planning on doing? You're going to stay in the Atlanta metro area as long as you want to? What are your dreams going forward?
Next, I would love to do another one. This story kind of hit me. And I think the stories that work best for me are the ones that hit me. I'll keep my ears open because I'd love to do another documentary. I don't know if I would spend the money I spent on this one. I had to go to about 9 different locations in 2 different countries. And it's quite a bit. But I would love to do another documentary. I really do like this storytelling. And, I'm proud of what I did here, but you can always do better. and I'd love to make the next one better than this one, and just start building. And there's always something to learn. So what's next? I don't know, but you know what? On the night of February 24th, 2019, I didn't know what was next until about 10 o'clock at night when I clicked the little button that said "Find your DNA relatives." So you never know where life's going to take you.
Yeah, I think that's the exciting thing about being in media and film, television, all of that stuff. It's just, it can be unpredictable. It can cause a little bit of anxiety or a lot. But yeah, that's the exciting part, is like, where can it take you next? So are you doing more short-term projects in the area? Do you work with other production houses? What do you do more so on the daily?
Yeah, my day job, there's a TV show syndicated called Small Town Big Deal. It's a travel show. I've been working with them from the first, practically the beginning. And it's been like 10 years. They're still in the air. In this market, they run on WSB TV. I do work with them, and we traveled all around the country to some great stories. And honestly, I give them a lot of credit, because I really was not a writer person. I was more an editor person when I was at CNN. But when I left CNN, I got some great gigs that I was able to write and learn about writing and story structure and things like that. Still a horrible speller, but no one's going to know that in the movie, except for the people whose names I spelled wrong in the credits. And there are two, and I apologize to them. And of course, I find that after it's posted, they're like, "Oh, we should tell you something." It's like, why didn't you tell me before?
I know that feeling. Oh gosh, and the pace I do stuff at my day job, video editing, producing. It's just like, I thought I had everything right here. There's always a bunch of detail.
Yeah, details are not my thing. It takes a lot of energy for me to get the details right. So, I'm very fortunate I was able to do this. One of the other things I wanted to say is that, there have been movies in this genre where people find out that they're donor conceived, or their mom isn't their mom, or their dad isn't their dad. A lot of those movies are very dark.
Sure.
I want to be able to have people realize that, donor conceived people aren't like these weird things. Some people have gone through a lot worse than I've gone through. Their dad didn't know that they weren't their dad, because there was an affair, or maybe the mother went to a doctor and the doctor said, "I'll fix it," and then would use his own sperm to impregnate the woman without ever knowing. That happens a lot. Those are horrifying stories. But unfortunately, there is a stigma, I think, that comes with that in the donor conceived community, as so it's called. That I think, most donor conceived people are just like regular people, and you don't have to see us in any negative way like that. And I think some of those other movies do sort of portray it as a creepy, dark, dirty kind of thing. And I wanted to make this like, look, it's not, I'm still me. In fact,
to the heart, yeah.
Better me, because the guy that raised me had heart disease, thyroid problems, glaucoma. He had bad bones because he broke his hip, gout, and the guy that I'm actually from had cataracts. That's it.
Wow. He looks really healthy. He really does. Seems like, and very positive. Yeah, really nice guy.
I was very lucky. Again, it's just everything, very fortunate.
Yeah. And I have to give a shout out, Natalie Pavelski. I noticed she's in the credits. She did costuming. How is she involved? We gotta include Natalie. She worked on I believe she worked on an environmental show back at CNN back in the day.
Natalie worked on, if we're going back to CNN days, she worked on a show called Earth Matters. So she was the host of Earth Matters. She was the environmental reporter for CNN for a good number of years. I think about 5 or 6. And I worked with her on a kids news show called Real News for Kids that we produced at 2 years.
Call it well.
Actually met her before then. She was actually my neighbor, but then, she was very helpful too, because I would say to her, look at these rough cuts. Look at this script. Do I know what I'm doing? Yeah. Does this make sense? Is the structure right? Are people going to walk out of here confused and not know what I'm talking about? So she was great. And I also said to her, Natalie, I wear jeans and T-shirts in the winter and shorts and T-shirts in the summer. Help me get something to wear that I don't look so really good with like the wardrobe in at least dressing me.
Oh, that's wonderful. See, this, and if you want to give advice to kids, it's so important. This is a great example of networking. You were able to get this project off the ground and completed, and it's because you networked. You knew so many people in the Atlanta metro area and the community. It's just that's a great example of it.
Yeah, it really is. And when it doesn't hurt, Bob, it doesn't hurt that we all worked at CNN. And there was a lot of production there. So again, there's a big talent pool to tap from. And since those glory days back in the 80s and 90s, a lot of people have left CNN. But still I keep in touch with them, and many of them are still working in the industry or parallel to the industry in other jobs. So it's good to be able to tap into that resource. You don't realize what a great resource you have. And then when I look at this thing, it's like, yeah, it's a great story that I get to share. It makes great dinner conversation, but to turn it into a film, you're right. It took a village, and I was very lucky. I hit the jackpot when it came to that.
Awesome. Thanks for stopping by. This was just so fascinating. I really enjoy talking with filmmakers. I don't get too many on the show, so it's just it was really wonderful. Thanks for joining me.
Pleasure to be here. Very, very happy
Absolutely.
to be. Fill in the blanks.
Fill in the blanks. And you can get it on VOD, wherever you get your video on demand.
Apple, Amazon, YouTube, Vimeo, Vudu, it's all there.
And you have a website as well?
I do. fillingintheblanksmovie.com.
Okay, yeah, definitely check that out. I love that poster behind you. How did that come about?
Found a picture. Yeah, the poster. I found a picture of me and my brothers holding hands. And I was thinking, what do I do for a poster? And the whole thing is you lose your identity. And so I kind of like the idea that we just sort of, the faces disappear, sort of like, who are you? At one point, one of the early versions, the graphic artist who helped me with this just made the faces disappear and the shirts looked empty. And I'm like, no, it's not a Halloween movie. So idea that, it's already ripped apart through age, but there was something else that, is missing as well, blatantly obvious. Certainly time has taken its toll on that picture, but there's something else that took its toll on that picture as well, that intentionally pulled our faces off. So it's like our identity was hidden. So there's a meaning in that.
Awesome. Congratulations on all of that. And thanks for stopping by. Take care.
All right. Thanks, Bob.
And it was really wonderful speaking with him. Y'all have a great Thanksgiving. Really want you to have a good one. And going into December, hopefully, I guess stay warm. Hard for me to believe as I'm recording this. But have a great December and the rest of this year. Should we not see or hear from any of you soon? But enjoy. Have a good one. Enjoy that Thanksgiving meal.
From farm to your store in days, not weeks. That's 80 Acres Farms. Did you know that most salad travels over 2,000 miles to reach your plate? But not 80 Acres Farms. Their crisp salad greens and herbs are food less traveled. This means it stays fresher for longer in your fridge. My salad lasts all week long. No more food waste. Oh, and did I mention there's no need to wash this produce because 80 Acres Farms uses 0 pesticides. Visit 80acresfarms.com to learn more and find their salads and herbs at your local Kroger.